Hey guys, thanks for stopping by for another episode here at alliseeisW. In today's video, we'll be covering the latest updates with Bitcoin and strategy MSTR, what my prediction is as we're going to be heading towards, possible MSTR inclusion to the S&P 500. Most of you are wondering, is this really going to happen? What is the probability for this to happen? It'll be a matter of time until we hear the announcement after the end of the stock market tomorrow. To me, from my perspective, there's a strong probability. I would say somewhere around the 55% chance. We also do have other big time candidates like Robinhood as well. And the fact that we had Coinbase just not too long ago join S&P 500, that shows the first crypto related company that was able to enter. MSTR meets all the criterias. Now it's just a matter of whether, it gets accepted as, one of the largest public companies holding on to Bitcoin as their treasury reserve with, just tons of unrealized gains. But the criteria for getting into S&P 500 has all checked off. Now it's just a matter of time as to whether we will hear either Robinhood or MSTR getting announced. And this is going to be very bullish. Now, if you're new to this channel, I would really appreciate you hitting the like, subscribing for more related content. Let's begin, guys. Crypto Elites posts Bitcoin target 190,000. Everything is just getting started. What have we been seeing? We see this support at like 77,000, and we've been just consolidating since reaching the all-time high of 124,000. Yes, we did have a slight pullback recently down to like 108,000, and over the last couple of days we see Bitcoin pushing up to 110,000. Today it had a pullback. We'll go through the reasons why there was a pullback even though the markets was in the green, but this is looking bullish. September generally is a month where there's corrections, but I definitely do think there's upside dip buying opportunities. I'm in alignment with this target where I'm predicting somewhere around the 180,000 use case before, end of 2025. Ted posts, this is what I'm expecting from Bitcoin in 2025. September could be bearish or sideways. Who knows? It could be a month where we see the opposite, even though the first 4 days of September has been bearish, followed by a massive rally in Q4. The blow off top will be in December 2025 or January 2026, just like the past cycles. So with Ted's prediction, September could be a sideways month, but we will start having a ramp up similar to last year where we had October, November, December being a very bullish time. And it may very well be the same case. Q4 is going to be very strong. In fact, I'm thinking September is going to be strong as well, especially with rate cuts coming, in the next, less than 2 weeks. That's going to be very bullish with quantitative easing. So I do think there's upside buying opportunities. What happened today? I mean, even though the markets were up, big time treasury companies like MSTR, BMNR, SBET, two big time Ethereum treasury companies following the MSTR playbook, there was a lot of selling pressure today. That was all attributed to just news around how Nasdaq wants to gain oversight of like listed firms using raised funds to buy crypto. So, this is really out of Nasdaq's league. This is really more of like SEC's roles for doing these audits. But the fact that Nasdaq wants to gain oversight, over these treasury companies, that's just FUD news, and that's what resulted in these treasury companies having a big pullback day. But we'll see. It's only a matter of time. I don't think this is all going to come to fruition, and it's just a way to really have market makers, shake out retail on the stop losses before, prices are sending it vertically. Let's take a look at Bitcoin Treasury. So, just recent, we had total number of Bitcoin held by publicly traded companies globally just past 1 million Bitcoin. That's one Nakamoto. So that's nearly 5% of all the Bitcoin that will ever be. And, And, just with the global game theory, the race just ramped up. In fact, before we'd even see that many companies on this list. And now, top 100 company, you have to have at least 63 Bitcoins to even be on the top 100 list. Obviously, strategy 636,000. There's truly no second best. No other company will ever catch up to what MSTR has. Why? Saylor's been buying Bitcoin since 2020, since COVID timeframe at large amounts. It doesn't matter if Bitcoin price is less than 10,000 or even 100,000. He continues to dollar cost in, and that's why Saylor has created one of the Titan company holding on to Bitcoin as their treasury reserve. Let's take a look at this post. Breaking 4.3 trillion. State Street just disclosed holding of $1.8 billion worth of Bitcoin exposure, and that's through MSTR. Why do people buy MSTR? Well, we know there's the MNAB multiplier. When Bitcoin goes up, there's a multiplier effect where MSTR has potential to go up even further. This is all attributed to the way that the stock is designed. And Wall Street is buying Bitcoin, and even though we're seeing pullbacks with MSTR recently over the last several weeks, where it went from like mid 400s down to where it currently is low 300s, a lot of people are worried, like, why is it dropping? We'll go through all those details. Bitcoin Bro posts 1 day till S&P 500 inclusion announcement. Bloomberg reports strategy has met all the criteria and more. The question is, does MSTR get inclusion? Now, put it in the comments what you think, but overall, I do think that there's a high probability. I'd say around 55, 60%. So we will get that announcement, come tomorrow after markets close. But the fact that, MSTR has met all the criteria, and the fact that, there's other companies in addition to like App 11 and, Robinhood, it really comes down to just a few candidates. And the fact that Saylor was, put on the Forbes magazine, the Alchemist of Bitcoin, I think that all of this lines up for strategy to potentially get added to the S&P 500. But who knows? Only time will tell. We can't tell whether it's going to be MSTR or Robinhood that will be announced tomorrow. So it'll be very interesting to see what the outcome is tomorrow. James posts, tomorrow is Judgment Day. So what are we seeing with MSTR's technical analysis? Saw a huge pullback just recently from like July 430 now to 330. Definitely do think this is a buying opportunity. I definitely see an inverse head and shoulders forming. It's only a matter of time for MSTR to have a reversal. So definitely buy when there's fear, buy when there's blood on the streets. MSTR has the biggest Bitcoin hodl, and they are the blue chip of this industry. BitcoinTreasuries.net. So there's a post about benchmark asset management's Mark Palmer maintains strong buy rating on Bitcoin treasury company MSTR. His price target $705. So definitely upside, even though the last several weeks and months there's been a lot of volatility, people losing hope. But I think the point where there's capitulation, that's where you take advantage, buy the dips, because the rips will come. MSTR alert this afternoon at 2:10 p.m. Some whale picked up more than $29 million worth of MSTR. That's very bullish. Big time whale just bought in. Why is that the case? Does this whale know of information that we don't know? Only time will tell. It'll be interesting how this plays out tomorrow. We're looking at strategy, in the after hours overnight. It's currently up, 1.32%. Question is, how high can MSTR go? Let's say if it does get announced to S&P 500, come Monday, I would suspect we could even get, above 20% gain on the day. And it takes about 2 weeks for a company to actually get included into S&P 500. So that 2 week duration could have major upsides. We've seen Coinbase, when it got announced, it jumped up by like close to 25% intraday trading. And then within those 2 weeks duration, huge appreciation with the price of Coinbase. Take a look at technical analysis of Bitcoin. So yes, we see, a buy signal back in April when, the price of Bitcoin was below the Ichimoku cloud. We've seen nice, run up, steady climb all the way up to 124,000, as of August 14th. So that's been, 2.5 weeks ago, and we've seen this pull back all the way down to 107,000. On the near term perspective, we see the price heat meter cooling off, but I see this, potential bounce up. We may very well get a buy signal on the alpha trends alert. But overall, all in all, I do think that Bitcoin is just consolidating right now. There's been a lot of, shakeouts, but it's only a matter of time when Bitcoin will break out. We've even heard from Eric Trump forecasting Bitcoin will get to 175,000, in the year 2025. So I still believe that there's huge upside here. It's just consolidating. And with Bitcoin having a weaker, price movement, that's attributing to, MSTR's stock price going down as well. So looking at, the technicals of MSTR, we had that sell signal when, it reached like 450. The VRSI relative to volume has significantly reduced. But when you look at like March during that time with tariff news and all that, huge oversold signals, MSTR was getting, slammed, going from 550 down to that low point. And what happened once the RSI got down to that low point? It started running back up to like, 430, consolidated, and it ran up to like 460, where we currently are at, 327 right now. I definitely do think there's going to be a potential reversal. Only time will tell. S&P 500 inclusion, if it does get announced, I think that we will see a definite, potential just vertical reversal. But even if it doesn't get into S&P 500, there's more companies that will get added, eventually. And there's December. I don't think that's going to make an impact on MSTR's share price. I definitely do see value upside in the current price levels. Buy for cheap, sell for steep. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this episode where I covered a deep dive analysis of strategy along with Bitcoin. Let me know what your comments are, what your predictions are. Is MSTR going to be added to the S&P 500? What's your forecast? What's the likelihood for that happening? And what's your prediction of MSTR stock price through the rest of 2025? Thanks, guys.